Warning, this podcast contains death. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the SC Not TV podcast for Saw 3. I'm your host, Dom. Joining me, we have Kim, Nikki, and Jake. How's it going?
I don't know why I'm still here.
we sucked Jake in for Saw 2, and now I want to play a game. So Jake's here for all.
Jake ain't having any of that game. I mean, you're not forcing him into this.
It's true. So, as told, the movie does leave off exactly where the last one left off, but at the same time, we have some time pass. So we did see what happened with Detective Matthews locked in the room, and right off the bat, we start with one of the most vicious scenes of the entire series. A scene that was so bad, watching it with both Nikki and Kim was hilarious. Because the groaning and the uhs and the hiding of their faces was just, I don't know, it was hilarious.
There's a scene that's later that's a lot worse for me anyway.
Yeah.
But I felt like the whole beginning was just, let's see how much gore we can shove in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even 5 minutes. It literally felt like 2 seconds.
Yeah, so
like, as soon as it started, it was like, damn, that's a lot of blood. Look at all those guts.
Mm-hmm.
Crunch,
so
crunch.
we start off with Detective Matthews, who was locked into the basement, or the bathroom rather, from the original Saw. He's down there with both, I should say the 4 corpses in the room, which are Zepp, Dr. Gordon, Adam, and Xavier. Those 4 corpses are still in the room with him. He's left with just a
Gordon
tape.
was in there?
Oh no, Gordon's foot. Sorry.
His foot, yeah. It's like, what?
Yeah, sorry.
I missed something.
And he's left with just a tape that kind of explains why he's there, but it's not a game. It's just, that's it. You're done. Like, game over. And the door was closed, and it's left. So he's got to try to find a way out, and we're getting flashbacks, like little nods to the first Saw, where he's like, cut through our feet, and all that. And he looks at the Saw, and he looks at his foot, and he's like, I'm not doing that. Like, there's no. He gets ready like he's gonna, he ties it up, and he's just like, nope, and he throws the Saw out of his reach, so he can't even think to do that anymore.
Can we say he also went for the chains?
Yes,
just like the conversation we went to.
Yeah.
I think I rolled my eyes so hard, I saw my brain. Because it was just like, whoop. Like, I was like, we've gone through this before. I'm so done with this. Like, after the second trap, which we'll get to eventually, but like after that, I was ready to just shut my computer off and walk away. I was so done with this movie.
So he grabs the toilet seat, the one that was the toilet lid, I should say, not the seat.
Like the top of the lid.
Yeah, it's.
You still sit on it.
Yeah. And he uses it to crush the bones in his leg, which, yes, is much gorier. Yes, it sounds awful, the crunching, everything, and the fact that he had to literally grab his foot afterwards and just give it that final break to slide it through the cuff. That was super, super, super excessive. Keep in mind, though, what we were watching is the unrated version of the film.
That explains a lot.
That does explain a lot.
For the movie, when it was in theaters, I think we got like only 3 less smashes, and I think the break of like the thing with his foot, I think half of that was shown off of screen. It was just like you saw the start of it, kind of deal. So yeah, this one was a little more gruesome than the original theatrical airing.
I mean, and Kim are still making faces when you're talking about it, so
it's crunching. I can just the and I'm like, ugh.
But at the same time, keep in mind that this is still a better solution than what Dr. Gordon did. Dr. Gordon literally cut his foot off, bled out, and very well probably could have died, you know?
But the point is, I could handle, though it was cringy, I could handle that over the sound of the crunching bone of his foot.
Oh, yeah.
Over and over and over.
I'm saying from a if you were in that situation, yeah, you could probably cut it off. That would probably be easier for you. But breaking it and sliding it through that cuff is still better for you because you're not going to bleed out. And there's a possibility that they could restructure your foot.
Yeah, they can reconstruct your bones and everything.
A lot of metal and stuff.
Yeah.
So he went with the correct path in which to escape, even though he really wasn't in a game. And that's what we're led right into the beginning there. We're like, okay, this isn't a game, right? And then it cuts in, and we have the cops, Carrie, Rigg, and a new detective, Detective Hoffman, who they have to break into it's an old abandoned rundown school that they're in, and they have to literally carve through this door, break it open with blowtorches and stuff like that because it was welded shut. So right off the bat, they're realizing something's wrong. This doesn't fit Jigsaw's MO, but at the same time, it does. It's got the voice, it's got the tape, it's got the puppet on the tape, it's got the jigsaw piece missing. It fits, but it's not really, it's not really him.
Mm-mm.
And then we later see Carrie. She's reviewing the tape. She gets abducted. She gets put into a trap that is unescapable, right? She gets through what she's supposed to do, and I know this is where Nikki was flipped out. Nikki didn't want to watch because she really liked this character, and even though she does what she's supposed to do, which is she has a cup full of acid, she has to stick her hand in the bottom of the acid, grab this key before it dissolves, and use it to unlock her chain so she can free herself. Well, she did that.
Mm-hmm.
But the trap was rigged that she was going to die anyway. So, once again, not fitting Jigsaw's typical MO. Then we have another side game, going on, which is actually the main... It's the main game. One of the two main games that are going on. But it's revealed at the end of everything that this was really Amanda's game the whole time. Because Jigsaw found out that Amanda was not...
just killing people.
Yeah, she was not doing his work the way he was supposed to. She was literally just killing people for the sake of killing them.
Maybe you shouldn't have adopted the crazy-ass bitch.
Yeah.
But whatever.
So, and they even go as far back in the flashbacks of explaining it's not just limited to this movie. They go back and they show you Amanda taking Adam's key from the first Saw movie and just dropping it on his chest. Right?
Yep.
So it shows you right there that Amanda rigged Adam's game so he couldn't win. So, that was one of the gripes we had in the first movie of, what was Adam supposed to do? Well, she rigged it so he literally just died. And then they cut to the Saw 2 house, and we don't see anything specific, but they showed her in there when they're saying that she rigged the game, so we probably can assume that she had a lot to do with the reason why some of their traps were not really traps. And speaking of the Saw 2 house, something I found out when I went back after we did the podcast, we were discussing this, because I thought I remembered something on this, and I checked the director's commentary, and for Saw 2, everybody in the house did have traps. We didn't get to see them all due to time and budget. The trap that we thought was Addison's with the razor putting her arms up in there, that was actually not her trap. That was Gus's trap, the guy who got the bullet through his head for looking through the peephole. So Jigsaw did not calculate that Gus was going to be the one to look through there and die. He put traps for everyone. I think the gun was just...
Maybe you shouldn't have done the stupid-ass trap that anyone could have easily avoided, or it could have went horribly wrong.
Well,
but,
the note on the piece of paper when they found the thing said, "Do not use this key on this door."
Well, why the fuck do you think these stupid ass people that you kidnapped would listen to you?
Because that's the rules of the game.
No, it's not the fucking rules of the game. It's the fucking people you chose. Why the fuck do you choose any of these people for your goddamn games? I hate these people.
Because they're worthless. He's trying to make them value their lives, which they don't. That's why they're chosen. If they were good people, he wouldn't choose them.
This is true. You gotta be a scumbag.
Mm-hmm. So, with that saying, that fills up a lot of the holes that we have from the first.
And then
two
it turns
movies.
out when you save them, you got this crazy ass bitch who was saved from a trap, and look how she turned out great.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he adopts all of them. He only adopted the one.
Well, the one he chose was like the worst one you could have chose.
Because she had daddy issues and decided she attached herself to him, and
I think it was a little bit further than daddy.
I think so too.
I think she wanted in his proverbial. He wasn't wearing pants in this. He was in a hospital gown, but I mean, yeah.
Gross.
I think it was that sort of obsession.
Yeah.
Gross.
It was definitely what they were leading to, because you saw we had part of the game, and it was going back and watching it now a second time, like you saw it through the flashbacks when they were showing like the final reel of like pulling everything together. When Jigsaw said, I want to play a game, he looked directly into Amanda's eyes when he said it. And it's very obvious if you were watching, but if you're just like casually, you're not going to notice, especially on your first viewing ever. You're just not going to notice.
Amanda didn't even notice, and she's supposed to know this guy inside and out.
Right.
Like,
so,
come on.
The whole time, this thing of your test is to keep someone alive, until they finish their game in the warehouse, meatpacking plant, whatever they're in, and if you can do that, then you'll live. And it was made specifically tailored to Amanda, but worded to sound like it was the doctor that was abducted from the hospital. So we see briefly with this new character, Lynn, we see her and what appears to be her husband, Chris, where they're kind of like having some issues. We think it's her husband. They have some issues, and he turns to her and says, "I want a divorce." We're thinking at the time, watching this, that he wants a divorce from her, but that's not what he's asking. He's asking for the divorce for her actual husband.
Mm-hmm.
So that they get you with those little play on words there too. This is when she goes to the hospital. She's like all torn up from this. Kid in the ER. She has to pull her shit together, save the kid. Barely does that. And
she also did a really risky procedure that was kind of against the rules, and everybody was pissed at her.
Yeah.
But I mean, if she didn't act that quick, I don't think he would have lasted into an OR.
No. I mean, she did what she had to do in the time, but she should have been there sooner and had her act together sooner.
Yeah.
And I think this is a reason why, she was picked. Because we see her in the hospital. She's taking antidepressant pills and all kinds of stuff. And then she later gets abducted while in the hospital by Amanda. And this is when we learn Jigsaw's actually on his deathbed. He asked Lynn for a prognosis, and she's just like, not long. Not long at all.
Like
and
20 minutes, hopefully.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Like, 20 minutes later goes into a full-blown seizure and almost dies. And that's when, they're like, we need to do an operation now. Amanda's like, well, we're not leaving, so you tell me what we need, and we're going to do the operation here. And she's like, absolutely not. She doesn't have a choice, though. So, they do it there. And they do actually really close to what you would see in a hospital. This is almost the exact procedure, with just a little better sterile tools. The tools that they used actually aren't too far off from what you would actually see used in a hospital.
They actually do use saws and everything.
They do the saws, they do the power drills,
Yep.
they do everything the exact same way.
there's just a couple more hands in there helping you and like draining
Right.
the excess liquids and holding the skull and the skin and scalp whatever back so that
Yeah.
the doctor can actually get in there and do the procedure that they
So
need to do.
the procedure that we get to witness is it is a skull plate removal. They remove part of the skull in the back of his head to allow the brain tumor a little more room to buy a little more time, because the pressure inside the skull and everything pushing is what caused his seizure. So to alleviate that pressure, they have to remove part of the skull. We
And
see,
also called a little bit of a hemorrhage as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, there was the blood building up, that pressure as well.
yeah,
That's what it releases the blood in the.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, it was crazy. But Lynn, in the meantime, while she was here and kidnapped and all this, she's wearing this giant shotgun collar. It's rigged with like 8 different shells, and it's rigged to Jigsaw's heart rate monitor. So if Jigsaw dies, the collar goes off, blows Lynn's head off. At one point, Amanda goes, "You want to kill me? Here," hands Lynn an axe and be like, but as soon as you do that, when I scream, you're going to give John, a heart. He's going to rip off his heart rate monitor, and you're going to die anyway. Or if you try to escape, you walk 20 feet out the door, you're going to get out of range of the sensor, the collar's going to go off. So you're screwed. You got to sit here. You have to do what we say. Don't have a choice.
Well, you do have a choice.
Yeah, it's death or not death. That's your choice. So, but, Jigsaw very clearly stated to both of them, even though he was speaking to Amanda, that the rules of the game are simple. The consequence is death. You have to keep someone alive. Can you grant the gift of life? So, we're led to believe the whole time that it's Lynn. And it's not.
Yeah. I mean, can you grant the gift of life to a man that's pretty much dead already?
Mm-hmm.
It kind of makes sense that he was talking to somebody else because his situation is impossible. He's already way too far gone.
Yeah. And
It's basically just prolonging the inevitable.
And there's scenes in there that are intentionally meant from Jigsaw to make Amanda jealous, to see like what her response is. And
Yep.
at one point, Amanda pulls a gun on Lynn, goes to kill her, and he's like, "I beg you to reconsider. Your life is in her hands." And then Amanda flips out and is like, "You gave her power over me?" Like all of a sudden now she's been replaced as the apprentice. Like she's seeing it as Lynn is the new apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
So she's really not thinking that Lynn's trying to move in sexually on Jigsaw, which is what we're kind of assuming that Amanda was thinking. But
Which is gross.
yeah, which I don't think that's too far off from the truth either. But this particular situation was more of she's being replaced as the apprentice, kind of.
Well, you're not a good apprentice.
No, she's a terrible one.
Yeah, she thinks she's pulling the wool over his eyes.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the meantime, while all this is going on, the test that we have to wait for the person to get through is a man named Jeff. Jeff turns out to actually be Lynn's real husband, right? And we find out how messed up he is, right?
He's just so traumatized by the loss of his son.
He is. He starts off, we don't know anything about him. He starts off trapped in a box. We see some flashbacks of him, and he's like a shell of his former self. He's looking for vengeance. We hear on the tape that it's against the man who killed his son, so that's when we get that first kind of thing. Found out there was a trial, and there were a lot of people in Jeff's eyes that didn't do the justice system well.
Mm-hmm.
So he was put on trial, and it says that you will come face to face with the person responsible for the loss of your child. And then we get some more flashbacks of the daughter wanting to sleep with her dead brother Dylan, one of his stuffed pigs. More pig metaphors, that we're using, more imagery for pigs and stuff. And then we see the father flipping out. He gets upset, but he doesn't really. I mean, it's still not right the way he flipped out, but he doesn't really scream at her at the same time.
Yeah, he gets angry with her that, don't go in his room, don't take his stuff. And she's like, I just wanted a piece of him to sleep with. And then you see him reel back and be like, just stay out of his room, don't touch his stuff. And then he walks away. So like, he realizes that she's going through just as much as he is, but, he obviously is not reacting properly to this.
Yeah. So, it's a bad situation. So, Jeff has to travel through the warehouse. He's got 3 tests. The first one we come across is a woman named Danica Scott. She is in a frozen meat locker. She is stripped completely naked, and we find out she was the witness to the murder. She watched.
The one and only.
She was the only witness to this murder. She was the one that watched. I forget what was his name. Timothy Young, hit Dylan with the car, and kill him. She was the only witness. She chose to not do anything about it. She fled the scene. So Timothy had there was no witness. Jeff or Timothy had no witness at the trial, so the trial went through without a witness, and that's not always a good thing, because then it's one person's word versus the other. There's it's awful. But so in this case, Jeff decides that she did nothing. She literally did nothing, and that's why he wants her to suffer. But then the water turns on, and she starts getting sprayed, and she's freezing, and we can tell frostbite's starting to set in, and some terrible stuff. And Jeff kind of changes his mind. He has like a little, change of heart, and he tries to save her. But he took way too long doing it, and she literally froze to death. So
she was an ice cube.
She was like, she's a human popsicle.
She was literally an ice cube. And then the next room he gets to is the judge that proceeded over the trial. He ended up giving the killer only 6 months because they didn't have enough evidence to convict him of anything more than an accident. So, in this, Jeff has to kind of let go of his son's possessions, something he's been obsessing over and not paying much attention to his daughter and, other things that mattered, because he's so obsessed with Dylan's possessions, keeping them all where they're supposed to be, all this stuff. So in doing so, he has to incinerate them all to get a key to drop down to save the judge, which he actually does. But the judge is in this pit with this... It's like the conveyor belt that the pigs come over in, and they get dropped into a meat grinder.
Yeah.
And the guts and everything goes spilling into this vat, and it just liquefies this. And keep in mind, these pigs are rotting. Like, they're covered in...
maggots.
Maggots and all kinds of stuff. So, it's just filling up. You can imagine the smell... The texture, it was disgusting. I wouldn't be able. This is where my game would end. Like, I wouldn't be able to do this.
I was gagging.
I mean, I'm gonna probably ruin bacon for a lot of people, but
I'm still how bacon. Fuck that shit.
I would have ate bacon watching that scene in the movie, but
you know how the bacon grease looks after you take it out of the pan, you let it sit for a bit.
It's that white goo.
It's like white goo. It's kind of like that, except a little bit more gray.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Now B's never going to be able to look at bacon grease the same way again.
I fry my eggs in bacon grease.
Oh, that's nice.
That's before it... Yeah, but you do that before it turns white and gooey. It's still like... Yeah.
Nice and fresh.
And it's edible.
And it makes your eggs taste like bacon.
Yep. So he does get the judge out. The judge makes it through. They go to the next room, and the final room, in fact, does have Timothy Young in it. He is the one that murdered Jeff's kid.
This is the worst.
And he is in this device called the rack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically, how far does the human body twist? How far can you twist an arm?
Not even how the rack works. The rack is a pulley.
Right.
Yeah, the rack is a pulley. It's a stretching mechanism they used in medieval days to torture. So, like, this particular rack has been rigged to twist rather than stretch. So you can only imagine the sounds and the actual way things look when it's twisting.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
not-
bone snapping. This was beyond bone snapping. Yes, you were hearing bone snapping, and that is the worst.
Well, your
Again.
skin only stretches so far.
Yeah, and then it rips, and then you got your tendons as well, which kind
Mm.
of squeak while they're being twisted and ripped. So yeah, it
And
was.
Not only, but we get to see his legs start to twist, and the bone literally does this.
It
Yeah, it's
like
splinters.
protruding, and it's
Yeah.
It's like if you ever saw a tree get struck by lightning,
Mhm.
and the way it just like shatter explodes.
Yeah.
That's what happened to his leg, and it was
Yep.
awful. It's awful. It's one of the worst scenes I think in all the Saw movies, to be completely honest. It's really,
This is where I
really
was putting the
bad.
blanket over my face.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
it-
just cringing in my seat. That, I mean,
Ashley's cringing. She hasn't even seen the scene. She's going, ouch. I can imagine this. I can imagine all of this right now. Yeah.
well,
I
we
was
kind of
like,
are describing it a little bit more detailed than maybe we should be.
No.
But
Just-
no. I mean,
that's what it looked like.
yes, yeah. But and even the sound kind of sounded like a tree getting struck by lightning. You know, you see all those videos on YouTube and stuff, and like just a, and then yeah.
So, Jeff decides he forgives Timothy.
Just
The way to save him is there's a box with a key, and the key is rigged with a pressure sensitive chain in which the key is attached to. On the other end of that is a shotgun. So Jeff is being as careful as he can, trying to get this key off, so the shotgun doesn't go off, so he doesn't get blown in the face with the shotgun. He does remove the key, and when he lets go of the chain, the trigger still goes off, and it whizzes by and clips a little piece of his ear. He gets some shrapnel through his ear. But the judge was standing in front of Mr. Timothy Young and didn't quite make it through. Now this is not a calculation of Jigsaw, you know. I'm sure it was a calculation of a possibility, but it was not. I definitely expect the judge to be standing here and die. That's not what was happening. So
No,
the judge just
just-
kind of accidentally took a bullet when he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
To the face.
Yes.
I mean, it's a shotgun. It's a multiple bits
Yeah,
of
it's
things.
it's
Yeah.
buckshot.
But I mean, like, I don't think he was standing in front of Timothy. I kind of think he was trying to look over Jeff's shoulder. a
No, he
little
was
bit.
definitely in front of Timothy.
He was trying to get Timothy
I
out.
thought the shotgun mechanism was on the back side of
No, it
the
was
rack.
just on the side of it, and it was facing straight across Timothy, so it would have missed him entirely, but it was like lined up directly in front of him.
Okay.
So, but it was way, way off to the side. So Jeff does go try to save him. By that point, Timothy's head is already twisting. It's the final part of it. You know, his head is twisting around. So, no one but Jeff has made it through this test. All three of his tests have died, and he makes it through. At this point now, unbeknownst to us, unbeknownst to Amanda doesn't know that Jeff and Lynn are spouses, and she doesn't know that Jeff's even in the building. Right? She is just looking at Jeff located elsewhere through the monitors and stuff, and she's been monitoring his test, kind of following his progress. She's like, he made it through the third room. Or she goes, he made it through the third room, and John Kramer's just like, aka Jigsaw, it's like, alright, well, he's done. Amanda, let her go. And she's like, no. She starts flipping out. She's like, he didn't make it all the way through. And Jigsaw is fighting with her. He's like, let her go. This was the rules. Remember the rules of the game. You know, all this stuff. This is when she finds out that Lynn actually has some kind of power over her. She flips out, and she shoots Lynn. As she shoots Lynn, Jeff comes barging through the door, shoots Amanda for shooting Lynn, and, you know, we're left with a big, you know, kind of shit fest going on. And we see Jigsaw tell Jeff, you have one last chance of forgiveness. Go on this table. There's a bunch of instruments that you can exact your revenge, or you could choose to forgive me. But keep in mind all of our lives or whatever in this decision or something like that. Jeff goes, I forgive you, turns on a buzzsaw and slits through Jigsaw's throat. Right through his throat, killing him. Jigsaw is now dead. Mastermind behind all the movies is now dead. And
we still got fucking 80 more movies to get through.
And Nikki's looking like there's no way he's dead. I promise you, he's dead.
Yes. Unfortunately, this franchise isn't.
Jigsaw is in fact dead.
Copycats.
I mean, your heart can stop, but someone can resuscitate you.
No,
I know his.
No, this is not Jason in space. This is not
fucking awesome.
This is not Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
No, I am ex-naying, like, say his throat didn't get sliced and his heart did stop. There are procedures and there have been cases where
you can bring someone back to life.
Exactly. I mean, the only thing that really confirms it for me is that his throat was sliced, but then again, in the first Saw, someone's throat got sliced and it was just his vocal cords. So
that is true.
Yeah, but he didn't get up and start walking around and didn't have brain cancer on top of shit.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm telling you, 100%, he is dead. We open up the next movie with his autopsy. He's dead. Okay.
Nice. Spoilers.
Yeah, talking about spoilers. Jeez.
It's the beginning of the movie. It's the first scene. So.
Find out. Way.
But, and then getting way ahead of ourselves now. The next movie coming out, Jigsaw, takes place 10 years after Saw 3 in particular, because it says he's been dead for 10 years. So the new movie coming out that's kind of like where this is taking place. And keep in mind, all these movies trail into each other, so they're all technically, like, I think Saw 2 to Saw 7 take place within like a 2-week period or something like that.
It's Jeff's daughter.
So, but as Jigsaw's dying, he lifts up a tape. Right, he's got a cassette player that goes off, which tells Jeff that Jigsaw was in fact his final test in his search for forgiveness. Jigsaw had mentioned to Jeff that you can't kill me, Jeff. He didn't listen, and he killed him. Jigsaw goes, the reason why I didn't tell you why you couldn't kill me is because I am responsible for the loss of your child. I am the only person who knows the location of your daughter. And the movie ends showing the daughter through a keyhole locked somewhere, and it says she has a limited supply of air, and if you want to find her, you have to play a game. So that's where the movie ends. Leaves you on a big cliffhanger. We're gonna go back and we're gonna cover a couple other things really quick. But that's the overall gist of the movie. So the big twists at the end were that Jigsaw kind of expected to die. He had a contingency plan. You know, he had all these things set in motion. Jeff and Lynn being husband and wife, that was the twist. And then the fact, obviously, that it was Amanda's game is the biggest twist of them all. Me personally, I really liked the story aspect of this movie. Like, yes, it's the most gruesome, or one of the most gruesome of the Saws. I personally think it is, like, the bloodiest, goriest, cringeworthy one. But there are other traps, standalone traps in later movies that are worse than any one scene in this, but it's not, like, the entire movie. This one, I think, is the goriest of all the movies.
Well, the whole movie was just a gore fest.
Yeah.
Like, the whole movie was just...
But...
huge. Like I said, the other two, you had, like, one scene that was like... ugh.
But the story in this one, I think, is one of the best ones. It really gets into, like, the relationship between Amanda and Jigsaw. And you kind of see that Amanda's been... like, there's something not quite right with Amanda. And it's not like, yeah, she's fucked up. Like, yeah, we know that. But, I mean, she's very conflicted. And conflicted to the point where it almost, like... causes issues. Like, we see she's very compassionate because we go back and see the first Saw movie now. There's flashbacks where we see Amanda and John setting up the
bathroom.
the bathroom traps, right? We even saw Jigsaw setting up Amanda's trap to begin with. And then the meeting with her after she survived the trap, asked her to leave her old drug life behind, and then she turned into cutting and, stuff like that. But then we saw the Saw 1 traps, and then we see Jigsaw say, Amanda's emotion is her weakness. And then we see she goes back into the Saw 1 bathroom sometime between Saw 1 and Saw 2, and she brings a plastic bag, like a big piece of saran wrap or something, and she suffocates Adam to stop him from suffering. She just wants him to have a quick death because she doesn't want him to just slowly die out there. She has some compassion. But if she has this compassion, what's making her kill all these people, right? So there is some kind of conflict there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was her fault that he was kind of stuck to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the key. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I feel like she's compassionate, but she's compassionate about killing. Like, she wants to get back at people.
I think some people she has. I think it depends upon the person. I think
Maybe.
for some reason, she had compassion for Adam. For some reason, we see in the second one, I can't think of the kid's name. Daniel. She had compassion for him.
Well, I think
but
there was a lot too. Was it was really rigged to Jigsaw's game? Like that was his game. And Daniel was a key part to like the end of that. So.
But also, he protected her. So I think that's another thing why I think she was attached to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's also a kid.
Sure.
Well,
also.
A lot of the people in the Saw 2 house, are, a lot of people that could have wronged her, somewhere along the way. Because we did see when Jigsaw was having his brain surgery, we got like this little flashback of like a memory or something. And we see this lady, which one we could assume is Jigsaw's wife. They embraced, stuff like that. But just before that, we see Obi, or Abi, however he likes his name pronounced, from Saw 2, the guy who abducted the people in the house. We saw him there, and so we know that there's some kind of connection between Jigsaw and Abi, going all the way back, now in this flashback that predates John and cancer, getting his cancer prognosis. So, we know there's some kind of connection there. So, there's that. I guess I want to ask you guys what your favorite and least favorite traps were.
This particular movie.
Yeah.
Just a specific one?
Yes.
I think I would say my favorite, even though it was like, because the whole rib thing was interesting.
Yeah.
And even though it was gory, it wasn't like super gory.
No.
Like, I guess even though she's like ripped apart, it was kind of like,
Yeah,
I don't know. I guess I always thought it was crazy.
I think that trap is called the Hanging Angel. I think that's what that trap is called. The one with Detective Carey.
And the worst would be the rack, hands down.
Yeah. See, if he could have possibly made it out, the very first trap we saw with the chains and the rings and the skin, thought it was clever. Like, I thought that was a Jigsaw trap.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously. But when, eventually we find out that the door is welded, it's obviously not, because it's an impossible escape for him. So, like, you could tell this guy really wanted to survive, because he was just ripping those freaking chains out of his body left, right, and center.
The ones that got me the most, because the chains were all over his body. They're in his hands. They're in his jaw. That was the big one. Mm-hmm. That was the one that, like, sealed the deal. Like, you're not getting out of this without, some. The other ones were bad too, but, I mean, that was the worst of them all. But, like, the one that got me more than anything were the two in his love handles on his sides.
Yeah, those ones.
Oh, those ones were just awful to rip through.
The ones in the back of his like where his
shoulders.
Achilles
shoulders.
Oh yeah,
his tendons in the back of his foot. Those were bad too. Like that makes you not walk.
Yeah, no, I know. He ripped them, but it was just like a quick thing, so
yeah.
we didn't like sit on that. But the love handle ones, he was like pulling them and they were stretching like taffy, and it was just like, oh.
It just makes me wonder how people do that whole suspension stuff. And I'm just like, how could you? I don't know. Whatever.
I think I mentioned when we were watching.
We did. We were talking about it. We did.
David Blaine did do that at one point, right?
Chris Angel.
Oh, Chris Angel. Yeah.
Well, it's a kink. It's something people are into.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just like.
I felt like that was a good one, if it wasn't rigged.
Yeah.
Because he could have easily gotten out of that if. Yeah.
Jake.
I would say my favorite trap is the twisty thingy because, and this is only because I saw it in person at Halloween Horror Nights this past weekend, and it was interesting to see. And I do believe that the rib cage one, that one too, was also in the maze as well. So I think there was only 2 traps from this movie in that maze, and it's actually pretty cool. The sounds are there. It's all great and disgusting. And they squirt water at you, so you get if you're in the splash zone, you get that effect, and it freaks me out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Least favorite trap?
Least favorite, all the other ones.
Everything else.
Yeah. My least favorite was the pig grinder. I could literally handle almost every single one of those other traps. If I was put in that position, I probably would die, but I could still do what was required. The pig one, I'd be just like, nope, I'm not burning my shit, and I'm not freeing that guy, and if I can't move to the next room, this is where the game ends. And that's the end of that. So. See,
that would be easy for me. I wouldn't... okay. The burn-in shit, that's fine. I can do that.
I mean, I could too, but...
That's material, things that I don't need. I can burn it and get the key. Mm-hmm. Now, crawling into that vat? No. There's no way. I probably would be retching the whole time just sitting in that room. Yeah. I wouldn't even have to see the goo or, the pigs.
The ideal thing would be to hit the incinerator right away, grab the key, and before all the goop gets really covered in there, just throw it on the guy. The guy did have room to move his hands. You throw it down to the guy and let him undo his own.
At one point, he was trying to hold his head, right?
Yeah,
so he had movement. He could have easily...
Yeah, I would have just dropped the key down for him. But, if you drop it in the goop and then he loses it or dies or whatever in there, then you're trapped in the room. So,
It's true.
It's a terrible thing. So that's my least favorite. I don't know. My favorite trap. I'm gonna have to go with the rack as well. That was a really interesting trap.
I don't know.
But all right, so little tidbit, and let me ask Jake, because usually you got some gripes with the movies. So let me ask what your gripes were with this one.
The fact that it exists.
So you don't have a real gripe with it. You just don't like it.
Well, just the real gripe is my same gripe with all the other movies. Like, I don't care about anybody, and I have no interest in anybody. I'm not intrigued by anybody's story, and I don't know what it is. Is it me? I don't know. Is it the damn writing? I don't know. The twists in these movies are always good, but I just feel like they're trying to top the twist from the first movie, and I don't know if. Okay, so the twist in this movie was pretty good. Well, the twists that we had in this movie.
Yeah, there was multiples.
Yeah.
But I just feel like each movie is trying to one up the first one, and all the other aspects of it I don't care for. I just don't.
Yeah. I mean, I totally get you on that department. Like, yeah, you're not supposed to emotionally connect with these characters and root for these characters. That's not what this franchise is about.
But it's not even rooting for them. It's just I am not interested in anybody or their story, I don't necessarily have to like them. I just need to be intrigued. Like, these characters don't need to be likable. I don't need to love them. They just have to be meaningful, and they're not to me.
Yeah. Well, they're not for me either. But that doesn't detract from my love for the movie. Because for me, the movies are about the twists, and that's all they're about. And yeah, the story to a degree. And it's not about the individual characters. It's like the overall story and how the characters fit together and the pieces and the puzzle and like everything. Like, I really appreciate the fact that they go back now. Like, here we are in Saw 3, and they went back, and in like a 3-second scene, you see Obi walk through, and it's just like, okay, wow, that's actually kind of cool that they're gonna go back and try to do that. You know, like, give you some kind of story. Whether you're invested in the character or not, the attention to detail is fantastic.
I mean, it's my same gripe with Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't care about the game.
When you say attention to detail, it would help. It would help if the character wasn't so fucking blurry. You wouldn't be able to tell who he is, anyways. I did not know that was Obi because I could not recognize him because it was so fucking blurry. Because it was a 3-second shot. Well, I thought it was Chester Bennington, to be honest, because. We had watched a Linkin Park music video, and just the way that Opie carried himself when he walked, the same build and everything. And he was blurry. He looked like Chester Bennington to me. So I was like, so when you said that, I was like, that's stupid, because I couldn't even recognize him. Be a difference if they actually like kind of like zoomed into his face and you saw it and then they went away.
Keep in mind, this is a memory that he's having on his deathbed. So one would assume that we're probably going to get to see more of that memory in flashbacks.
We were on the focus part, which the focus part was him and his wife or whoever she was. And
but even
I'm
though
the only weirdo that's attached to Jigsaw.
But even though it's blurry, right, and you're like, oh, I didn't realize who it was. Let's say, for example, hypothetically, that scene does come up in another movie, and you see more of it, and it's very clear that it's Obi. Now, when you go back and see Saw 3, you're going to be like, oh, that is Obi. Like, that's what I mean by attention to detail. Like, it's something that you're probably not going to pick up on your first viewing, but, you know, upon multiple viewings, and you're never going to catch everything on your first viewing through. That's the thing. There's no way. It's impossible.
The only reason this is my second viewing of this is because I forgot absolutely fucking everything. That's the only reason why you got me to see this movie twice.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I watched it because, you know, we were doing this. So.
Yes. So
I haven't watched these movies in a while. I literally forgot what order these things go in.
Yes. So little background now. Because of there was I think we mentioned during Saw 2, I can't remember if it was on camera or off camera, but we mentioned that Carrie Ells got into a legal dispute. I believe this was off camera. I don't think we discussed this.
It was off camera.
He got into a legal dispute after Saw 1 and distanced himself from the franchise. Basically, what it came down to is he made a agreement in paper that said that he was due the exact same amount of money as the top billed actor. Like, that was their deal. Then we had the guy who played Adam, opposite of him, the other lead character, played Adam opposite, but that was Lee Wanell is his name. He also doubled as the writer for the movie. So he got paid for 2 roles, but Carrie didn't see it that way. Carrie saw it as, he's making more money than me. That's not what our terms were. So there was a big lawsuit. And because of that, and I'm not saying it's Carrie's fault, and I'm not saying it's Saw's fault, there's something somewhere in between. It's a little bit of both, to be completely honest, in my eyes. I'm sure there was more to it being in part of the lawsuit and stuff like that, so I can't realistically pick sides. But because of that, Carrie distanced himself from the Saw franchise. What the original intention for this movie was, is it was not supposed to be Lynn in there. It was supposed to be Allison and Diana. And it was supposed to be Gordon who was being tested, not Jeff. So we were gonna get the two, like the original 2 characters. That's why we had, like, you know, We had like the estranged marriage, like this whole thing. It was gonna pick up on that story from the first movie. So they had like this plan, because we knew Gordon and Allison were having problems. Gordon was like going for an affair and stuff like that. So if you look at those connections now and you piece that together in your head of what the movie could have been and what it should have been, and it's no fault to the Saw writers, they did the best with what they had to work with, and it doesn't really take away from it. I think the movie could have been a lot better if that was the case, but I still think that this twist was fantastic the way it was at the same time. So
as interested as I am in Dr. Gordon's what happened to him after Saw 1 and all that jazz, I don't think his whole scenario with his life would fit in this particular.
I mean, it was written a little differently. Keep in mind, it's not exact, how this was going, but I think the whole thing, like with Amanda not realizing the two of them were married, kind of because she wasn't part of that setup and stuff like that. I think that was meant to play out, but that wouldn't have came over to us as the audience as much because we would have known already from the first film. So I don't know exactly how it would have translated, but I would have liked to get more on Dr. Gordon's story, more on Allison and Diana's story and stuff like that. I think it would have probably left with Diana rather, the little girl, probably her being locked away at the end of the movie. That's kind of my guess. So it's kind of intriguing to think, what it could have been, but
I don't know. I think I like it this way. I don't think I would have liked it the other way. I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I want to know what happened. I'm with Nikki on this. I would have liked to see what happened to him, but I think the multiple twist end was much better than I think.
Having the new character, like having Jeff, like the new characters in there, made it matter a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Because even though Jeff was a douchebag and he was like all for vengeance and stuff, he ultimately, like, I know why he was chosen, but there are people, hundreds and thousands of people that go through that same feeling every day when they lose a loved one. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he could have chose anybody.
Yeah.
Like in that situation.
It just so happened to work out that,
no, yeah,
it was him and then
everything.
the wife and like that whole piece like fit together really well, so.
No, I just know that
of everything.
I just know that what he was going through and then like what his wife is going through, that's the reason why they were picked. But like that situation with his son and how he was feeling, saying that he was the main tester, which, in this movie it wasn't. It was Amanda, but like we're led to believe that Jeff is the one that they're testing the most in this particular movie. Yeah. Jigsaw could have chose anybody else going through the same situation. Mm-hmm. Because, the depression, the anxiety, the will to not go on, the distancing yourself from your other loved ones, that happens a lot.
Yeah. For sure, and I think a lot of it, too, like, obviously, because it was written this way, but I mean, excluding the fact that the writers wrote it this way, I think it was, Jeff was chosen because, he neglected his daughter, and, like, he has reason to, like, continue to live and continue to be strong, because there's plenty of people that do suffer loss like this, and don't do what Jeff did to his other,
I'm not saying that those people aren't doing what I'm just saying there's a lot of people going through Jeff's situation as well.
Oh, so, yeah, of course. Yeah. It's just a combination of everything, and it worked out so well because it's the play on words of the loss of your child. It's the estranged couple, the fact that Jeff has a lot of issues that he needs to get over to continue on with his life that Jigsaw's trying to make him appreciate.
Sadness, depression, anxiety.
Lynn's
list off.
Lynn's not handling herself very well either. The fact that she's a doctor, helps the situation. It's just a giant puzzle. It all fit together perfectly, So I don't know. So this is going to be something new that we're going to continue to do. As of right now, Saw 1, 2, and 3. Rate your movies in order.
1, and I want to say 3, and then 2.
Okay, so you like 3 better than 2. Interesting. Even though your favorite character died in it.
I'm not saying that she's my favorite character. I just would have liked to see things from her side more.
Yeah.
Like, and then like how she went out, like that's when I was just like, you know what, this movie's stupid. There's no sense to any of this shit. I'm gone. Like I was on Jake's level, pissed off. I was like, I am done with this shit. I don't want to watch any more of it. I am done.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Kim, order.
Same as Nikki's.
1, 3, 2.
Actually.
Okay.
So, unlike everybody else, I'm actually attached to Jigsaw, and that makes me sad.
Jake?
Okay, so from like my favorite to my least favorite, I would say Friday the 13th Part 2, every other horror movie ever made after that, and then this franchise.
In terms of Saw.
They're all they all kind of meld together for me except for the first one, so I would say the first one. Then I don't know. I think 2 and 3 are interchangeable at this point. So at this minute, it's going to change in like 2 seconds later, but at this minute, probably 3 then 2.
This is a world record. All 4 of us are in agreement so far.
No, this is when the apocalypse happens.
Well, no, it's 2 seconds later, and it changed now, so now it's back to 2, then 3.
No, because one of Jake's biggest gripes last podcast on Saw 2 was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, she's just killing people for the sake of killing people. But now taking, like, I did mention it does get answered, and now taking into, consideration that Amanda was literally just killing people for the sake of killing people. It wasn't Jigsaw doing it. It does answer and fill in those questions, and it's like, okay, that actually makes sense for me now. And you can tell the way they've gone back to fit things in and explain them, that they kind of had an idea what they were doing all along. Like, they knew setting, Amanda up that she was, like, going into the next movie, they knew that she was not going to be the perfect apprentice.
She was a loose screw.
Yeah.
Or she was a loaded cannon. Yeah, she's all those things.
Because of that, I can say yes, they set Saw 2 up intentionally so they can answer that in Saw 3. They knew there was going to be a 3. But what is really impressive is Saw 1, which was a standalone film, which did not intend to have a sequel or any other sequels to it. We did see some of that, like Adam's Trap and stuff like that. And they found a way to go back and explain it and make it fit with the continuity of the movies and like the lore or whatever you want to call it to make it work. So that's kind of that's the attention to detail that impresses me in these movies. So yeah, as Ashley says, and keep in mind, Ashley in chat is joining us. She says the story is set up to be really interesting. Ashley has not watched any of them. She's just hanging out listening because she's intrigued with the concept of the story.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah. So
I mean, you don't have to watch them.
Right. And I like I said many, many times, the story is where this series excels. The story is what's phenomenal.
I wouldn't say that. I'd say
based on every other horror movie that I've ever seen, this is the best horror movie story I've ever seen.
Okay, whoa.
I kind of want to clarify.
Here comes a battle.
This is it's a mentalist thriller. It's not technically a horror.
It's in the horror genre.
It is.
But the horror genre splits off into different.
Of course it does.
It's
subcategories.
You can't just smush it as the best horror film.
I didn't say it's the best horror film. I said it's the best story in a horror film.
You're still wrong, but...
Well, give me one that's better.
Friday the 13th Part 1.
You should know that's where that was going to go.
Friday the 13th Part 1 does have an interesting story, but as an overall series, no. I'm talking about overall series.
Now I will fight you. Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Can I at least go, wash my hair or something? Because I feel like this is gonna get dirty.
Believe me, I love me some Friday the 13th.
Can I go to bed?
there's not much story after the first movie.
What are you talking about? Jason going to space was like the best fucking thing they could have
Oh
done.
my
with it.
god, that was the one thing I pointed out was dumb last time, I think.
Oh yeah, it's fucking dumb and it's fucking stupid. I love that it's
Yeah.
fucking stupid. This series doesn't go to like the stupid lengths that those '80s movies went to,
Right.
but that's not the reason why I love Friday the 13th. The reason why I love Friday the 13th is because of there are things in that movie that I care about, and no, there are things that are retconned and there are things that are not canonical, but I still fucking love it because.
Oh, I'm not
They're-
trying to take away your love for it. I'm just saying when movies start like contradicting themselves, that's when I start getting an issue with it.
Yeah, well, people ask me all the time because like because like whenever people like meet me or like talk to me the first time about like horror movies and they ask me what my favorite franchise is, and I say Friday the 13th, they ask me why, and then when I talk about like my gripe with the Saw franchise, like, well, why? What makes that? Why do you love Friday the 13th so much, and why do you hate Saw so much? When people point out to me that Friday the 13th, the series as a whole, is fucking ridiculous. And I always tell them it's because I care about the things and I care about the people and the situations in Friday the 13th, and I don't have that connection with Saw. And and it's weird because like I didn't grow up with Friday the 13th. I actually grew up with the Saw movies.
Yeah.
Because like they were coming out when my love of horror movies, was developing at that young age. But I just never connected with anything in the Saw franchise, but like I just connected so
I
well
find
with Friday.
myself disconnected from all characters in horror stories, like all the people that are getting whittled away and murdered. Like I don't care about any of them ever in any of them. Like Freddy, Jason, Halloween.
Yeah, I was a Freddy.
Like Halloween is probably I should take that back. The first Halloween is probably the most invested I've ever been in a character.
I
in a
feel
horror
okay.
franchise.
Before we really get into this, I feel like comparing a realistic like thriller like Saw, comparing it to like Freddy or Jason or any
Which
of those
are more
other.
supernatural than anything.
Yeah.
It's like comparing apples to oranges. They're still fruit, but they're very different.
What about strawberries?
Those would literally kill
And
me.
one gives you indigestion, the other one
Yeah.
is a nice pretty drink.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's
She's right. They're
the most
technically
simplistic.
No, I know.
horror, but they're a different genre within horror.
No, I realize that, but that's why this is one of my favorites, because it's grounded in reality. Somebody could really be this fucked up and do this,
Yeah.
and that's what I like about it. Where you could pretend to be Jason all you want, but as soon as somebody comes at you with a shotgun and shoots you in the chest, you're going down and you're not getting back up.
This is actually something Kim can actually probably attest to. When you compare a Korean soap opera to an American soap opera, they're both soap operas, but they're really fucking different. The storytelling is completely a
Because-
different perspective.
Oh, of
Asian
course.
dramas have their
I'm
own.
not
I mean,
arguing
even
that.
when you're comparing Korean to Chinese, they
Yeah.
have their own specific like line of where they're going. I mean, obviously, Chinese dramas they extend themselves. They're a lot longer than a Korean drama,
Mhm.
but it's the same. But if you want to go
Yeah.
that way, I was gonna go. You could have stayed with this with the horror, but if you want to go that direction, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
And see, one of my other, and I still consider it in the horror genre, one of my other favorite horror movies is the movie Seven, with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman.
That's a good movie. That's a
That's a
good
good one.
movie.
And that, to me, is probably the closest genre that you could compare Saw to.
Well, you're looking more like realistic serial killers versus.
Well, it's like the mystery aspect of it, or like the detective aspect of it.
mhm.
And the
Which is
serial
int-
killer aspect of it.
That to me is interesting. I love serial killer dramas, and like that's one aspect I do like about this franchise is the crime drama behind it, but then it just kind of falls apart
Yeah.
from these shitty characters. And the thing
I mean,
about it
there's-
is I don't want necessarily good or well written characters. I just want characters to have either charm or interest to them, because for me the story could be shit. Like
Right.
okay, has anybody watched the movie Friday?
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Next
movie's fucking
Friday.
ridiculous. The story is fucking ridiculous.
Yes.
Friday After Next.
But what-
Right, yes,
what-
Friday. Okay,
What do you remember about those movies?
This
Not a
stupid
whole lot.
shit.
Yeah.
Bye, Felicia.
Yeah, bye,
Exact-
Felicia.
Exactly.
that's literally all I remember
Yep.
from those movies.
Exactly. So like the fucking people in this fucking cul-de-sac or like the best part of that movie, and that to me is like what's important to me, and I think that's why my distaste for this franchise comes from. Is like I don't care about anybody.
Well, there's also
like
a lot of
the story could be great, and it is great.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just the characters for me, and the situation and the story that you put them in is what makes them great. But these characters are so fucking dull and boring, and I hate them that I don't care about the story that they're in.
Right. Usually the victims in the traps, but the lead kind of characters, especially like the detectives and stuff, and the like Carrie and things like that. We're going to as it goes on now, we're gonna find a little bit more about why certain things are going on, and it's not like when we discuss it on the podcast, it's gonna be something that's like, oh, like that. But it's not something that they give you and throw in your face and be like, this is why this. It's something that's inferred. And as soon as you realize it, you're like, okay, this really is starting to make more sense now. So
Speaking of the detectives, I want to just bring something up that both me and Kim were like, about, was the new Detective Hoffman. We were like, there was something wrong with that man.
Oh yeah.
We just could not. It's just his energy, his vibe.
Okay, so the very beginning, the one that was the guy that was doing like the investigating like the stuff that was on the ground or whatever. He was given some evil weird eye stuff going on.
Okay.
I don't know. He just seemed empty, and it, like the words he picked, the way he phrased them, the way he talked, and just the way he looked. Something's off.
Okay.
I just wanted, because that was just something that both me and Kim were like instantaneously, like immediately at the same time. We're like,
"What is this
wrong.
dude? What's he doing? What the heck?
Is he an alien? Because he does not seem human."
I wouldn't put it.
He's Edgar from.
A lot more fun.
He's Edgar from Men in Black. Sugar, water.
Oh, I love that franchise. I love MLB.
So.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. But we're coming up now, Saw 4, for next week, which is my favorite one in the franchise. I exclude 1 when I say franchise, because you will never beat 1. But in terms of sequels, it is my favorite sequel for the entire franchise. For many, many, many reasons. But yeah. There are a few plot holes that are left open intentionally from this movie. Amanda had a key around her neck that she wore through the whole movie. We never saw the purpose of said key. So that's kind of left in the air. Amanda had a note that she was reading that brought her to tears, literally. We don't know what was in that note. We don't know what was said. And when Jigsaw was having a conversation with Lynn, he had a tape sitting on one of the trays near him that said "Play Me," and we saw him pour wax over it, and that was the last we saw of that tape. So those are some noteworthy holes that were left open.
Questions.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the final little thing that I wanted to mention, and it's not so little, but this movie, when the writers from the original Saw came back for this movie, writer and director, they originally had no intention of coming into this film, but the producer, whose name was Hoffman, and that's why we have Detective Hoffman. He was named after the producer. He passed away between Saw 2 and Saw 3 before filming began. So they pulled them in and had the original guys do the script, modify stuff around, write it, film it, direct it, edit it, the whole deal like they did originally with Saw 1. That's probably why this one for you guys and me as well comes up so high in the ranking and gets up there with Saw 1 in terms of like the twists and stuff like that, because it was the original guys. And that being said, this is also where they intended to part ways with the franchise. So in doing so, they literally killed off all the characters. So there's no ties left to do movies. That's why Detective Carey dies. That's why Jigsaw dies. That's why Amanda dies. That's why Lynn dies. That's why, Jeff is left, appearing to die and no way out and no way to win his game and stuff like that. It was just meant to end on like a cliffhanger with no real intention of continuing. But they knew there was a possibility that they were going to continue the franchise without them, and they left some holes in there intentionally for that reason, but this was intended to be the end. So, that being said, I think it still would have been a great end of the series. And I kind of, in a way, wish it was the end of the series.
I wish so, too.
But, at the same time, Saw 4 is my favorite, so if they didn't continue on, we wouldn't have had that. So. But I think that about does it, unless you guys have anything else you'd like to add.
No.
Nope.
Go to Halloween Horror Nights. Sponsor us.
I really wish I could, to be honest. I wish I could. I wish I could be there and go to it. It'd be so interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's true.
Evil Dead stuff.
Evil Dead.
That's another... You know what? That's probably one of my favorite horror movies.
Kim, where can people find you?
On Twitter, and HUFFITY,
Excellent. Nikki, where can the people find you?
On Twitter at LadyVenom24, LadyVenom24.
Jake, where can the people find all your giggles and gore and monsters? No, okay.
You don't work. Okay. You can find me and all of my giggles and gore monsters and mayhem here on YouTube at Jacob Salazar, or you can find me on Twitter at tweetingme.thelife at TNorland. That is TONOWHERELAND. Join the Norland Society.
Excellent. You can find me down below at Phenomenon, PHENOMEDOM. And you can find us all and more on Facebook, Gmail, G+, Twitter, MySpace, and right here on YouTube at /ASO TV Podcast for some more podcasts for some of your favorite TV shows, games, and movies. Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Nikki, why are you still waving?
Because I can.
Mm-hmm.